Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform that you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, album reviews, and more. My guest for episode 220 is Chris HARMS. He's known primarily as the frontman for the German gothic hard rock act Lord of the Lost. On February 7th, 2024, he is venturing out with his first solo album entitled 1980. It's certainly a departure from the sound that he's known for with Lord of the Lost. This is a more synth pop electronic album. I had the opportunity to catch up with Chris to talk about his fantastic new album, 1980. And here we go. If I knew absolutely nothing about Chris HARMS, how would you describe your solo music to me?
Oh, that's a good question. Are you aware of the German 80s Europop band Modern Talking?
Not so much Modern Talking, no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's say it's a mixture of Depeche Mode and very early weird German 80s trying to be cool kind of music, but with a little less of a mullet. So I think it's hard to describe. It's like, for me, it's a little like time travel. I try to do music which I think I would have done if I would have been a grown-up person in my age in the 80s, being able to have all these synthesizers and instruments, because what I did for this record was I only used keyboards, samples, sound libraries, and all that kind of stuff, even like effects in the mix down that were available in the 80s, or digital simulations, so-called emulations of it. So I tried to kind of really do the time travel here to keep it kind of real. There was a nice experiment, so to reduce yourself to just that and see what comes out of that. And I think this really helped to make it really sounds like 80s, because I just love that sound. And I wanted to use the tools that they had back then and not more, you know.
Another artist I thought that you kind of emulated a bit was Giorgio Moroder. Italian composer, did a lot of the 80s movies. He did Scarface. He did Neverending Story, kind of that same sounding vibe. Like, you have a very movie soundtrack vibe with your latest album, 1980.
Yeah, or if you check, I mean, like the soundtrack to Terminator, like the first one, what they did was they did a cinematic soundtrack with like score music, but not played by an orchestra, which was the usual thing. It was played by, you know, the MIDI notes kind of played like whatever they had back then, try to emulate an orchestra, which from a like an objective perspective sounds really bad, but from a taste perspective, it sounds very unique and kind of cool. In Terminator 2, then they kind of mixed it up. So they used like real orchestra plus these elements. So yeah, but actually it's interesting you say that, because I really was not inspired by 80s soundtrack music, but I see it as some kind of compliment that you say it sometimes it maybe sounds like that. So thank you.
Now, you've been the front man for Lord of the Lost since 2010. Why was now the time to put out your first solo effort?
Yeah, actually, I founded Lord of Lost like in 2007 as a solo project, and we started out as a band in 2009 with the first shows, and since then we count like the history of the band as a band. And I've done electronic music before with other projects. I had other bands before. I had different kind of side projects throughout the years, but for like 10 years I kind of felt like I want to do some 80s synth pop record, because, you know, when I grew up in the 80s, I didn't listen to 80s music. I was born in 1980, hence the album title. So back then I listened to the music my parents had on vinyl that was more like 60s, 70s music. And then in the 90s, I started to find my own kind of bands I listened to. So I revisited the 80s as a grown-up person, and I really started digging into it like 15 12, 11, 10 years ago. And since then I felt the need to do this kind of record. I think the first time I talked about it was like 10 years ago in an interview. Like, I want to do a solo record with just 80s music and give it the title of my birth year. But, it's a little like, if you want to have children, then some people they always wait for the perfect moment. No, there needs to be the perfect moment to conceive a child. There's never the perfect moment. There's always something in the way, money or time or career. So either you want it or not. And I was at this point, like, I was in summer holiday last summer, and I thought, like, I'm telling myself this for 10 years now. If I keep waiting, like, for the perfect moment where there's enough time, I'm never going to do it. And I started doing this solo album in the middle of the next Lord of Lost record. We started working on the next Lord of Lost record 1 year ago. So we were half a year in. And I was like, in the middle of that, I was like, okay, we started with Lord of Lost. And before we finished Lord of Lost, just in the meantime, as a little holiday from Lord of Lost to clean my mind, let's do the solo record. So I did it between June and September. And I was actually on US tour in September when all the mixes were being finished with my production partner back in Hamburg. And he sent me all this stuff while I was on US tour listening to it. And we were talking on the phone, like doing the corrections on the mixes. So I just waited too long, man. And I'm so happy I just did it because it was just about time. I had to do it. I'm so happy I did it.
New album 1980 comes out digitally January 31st and physically February 7th, from what I understand.
It's all been postponed to February 7th. I think everything. So maybe digital distribution didn't write it down yet somewhere, but it's all come out on. It's all going to come out on February 7th. Yeah.
Fair enough. It's being released through Napalm Records. Obviously, you had a short little window to kind of put this all together, but you have a songwriting partner, Anthony Brown. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your relationship with him?
I wrote all the music with my friend and production partner, Corvin. He's Corvin Bahn. He's one of these guys who's been with Lord of Lost from the very beginning, and he's like he does classical arrangements for many metal bands, and he's in our production team for a long time. So we did the music together because I like to collaborate. I am able to do things on my own. I have the tools for it, but it's more fun with someone. So I did all the music with Corvin, and I did all the lyrics with Anthony J. Brown. He's an Englishman. He's a comedian, he's a musician, he's a lyricist, he's a poet. I met him like 10 years ago, and nearly all the lyrics that I write for Lord of Lost or other bands, because I'm also a songwriter for many other artists, all the English lyrics, I at least go to him for corrections, but I don't just want to use him for corrections. So we come up with stuff ourselves, or sometimes I just have a story in my mind and I'm telling him the story and I'm asking him to put it in words, and then I'm trying to fit it in one song. So there's like 100 different ways to how I can work with Anthony, which is very fruitful because my English is just school English, and I learned it from school and from TV. So first school, and then by watching all the TV shows and all the movies and stuff, and like 90% of them they just come from the US or from England. So I like to watch stuff in original language, but still it's not my mother tongue. And if you work with like a British guy who has this amazing vocabulary, what a hard word. So he comes up with things I couldn't even have heard it in like any kind of movie or whatever. I didn't learn it in school. And this is very fruitful. So sometimes it's just, I finish lyrics and he goes like, yeah, there's these 3 words. Maybe if you say this instead of this, it sounds so much more magical. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So you would never guess that as a German, but I prefer singing English over German. I love German language, but it's like when I think about music, I barely feel the need to sing in German. I sometimes do, but I like English better.
Let's talk about a couple of the songs that you've released ahead of the album. She Called Me Diaval seems to be quite a popular one that you've put out because people are wondering exactly what that means.
It's actually this character called, I think it's Diavol, which sounds a little like devil. It's an old English word. It was also used for a character in Maleficent, this movie with Angelina Jolie. It's this raven buddy she has who comes in human shape sometimes, but it doesn't have anything to do with that. So sometimes my music comes from weird dreams, and I had this weird dream where this was that I was in love, and there was this person actually calling me that. And to this day, I don't know why I dreamt that. Or maybe I dreamt that because it's part of my truth and I don't want to tell anyone about it. And so I hide everything behind a dream. Who knows? But sometimes it's just nice to put unexpected things you don't really understand into feelings, into music, into words. And sometimes they don't really have to make sense or have to be explained. You listen to that and you come up with your own story because it's somehow miraculous. At least this is what I like. When I listen to songs like that from other artists, I'm like, I'm not really sure what it means, but it's creating beautiful pictures in my mind. It's a little like David Bowie did that a lot. So he was throwing out stuff. And you were like, this doesn't make sense, but at the same time it does. And maybe it's one of these kind of songs. I don't want to compare myself to David Bowie, and I would never do that, but it's the same kind of way of working.
So, in keeping with sort of this throwback sound, where you try to capture the sound with the equipment that was available that could mimic it, you also did that with your video, particularly for "She Called Me Diavol," and I would imagine that was tough getting VHS equipment, or at least good VHS equipment, to film these things.
Yeah, the thing is, or the good thing about it is you don't really need good VHS equipment to film that stuff. It's enough if it's bad VHS equipment, just have to work somehow. So what I did with our video guy, it's like we filmed most of the things with like regular cameras from nowadays, like 4K and everything, great quality, and then we filmed the same stuff again on VHS, sometimes even parallel. And then we kind of mixed it up. And in some of the videos, we did 3 so far. The third is going to come out soon. One is more VHS, the other one is less. And the thing is, this is one thing we did. Some other things, we took the like 4K material and normally you digitalize things. In this case, we, let's say, analogize them. Can you say that?
Sure.
We were like, putting that on tape and then redigitalizing it. And when you redigitalize it and you open the lid of the camera or the VHS player a little, and you touch the tape and you pull it a little, so the tape is actually like, it's not being read like correctly. You have all these beautiful VHS mistakes that happen. So we were actually working with like analog glitches here sometimes to put it in there. We had a problem with the drone stuff though, because you cannot really put, like a VHS camera on a drone, at least not the ones that I can. There's drones like that big, but they're like super expensive. So what we did, we had like the regular drone shots, and then sometimes we just filmed the screen then with a VHS camera to make that VHS. So it's a little weird mixture of some VHS tricks and actually real VHS material, which was a lot of fun. And it's 4:3. The format of the video, what you're not used to anymore. It's 4:3, which makes it fun. Some people are like, "Is my screen broken or what's happening?" Especially the younger generation, they say like something it can't be right. So yeah. So even Spotify, they were like, "Can you resend the video? The format is wrong." We were like, "No, it's not right."
You have another song out called Madonna of the Night. It's a duet with Sven Friedrich of Solar Fake.
Yeah.
First question, it would be how you and Sven hooked up for this particular song, and then the second, what inspired the lyrical content?
Sven and I, we're friends for many, many years, and I actually listened to one of his old bands 25 years ago. The band was called Dreadful Shadows, like a goth rock outfit, and I loved to listen to that when I was younger. And I love his voice. I always dreamt about singing a song with him, and I thought about asking him for a lot of Lost duet, like for many years, but he's more like drawn to electronic kinds of music and whatever a lot of Lost song I had in mind. I always thought like, no, I think I want to wait for something more electronic. So it was just about the right time. And about the lyrics, it's sometimes it's miraculous for me. I just hear a word and I feel like this should be a song. And the word Madonna, maybe because of Madonna, the pop star, which started a career in the 80s. Maybe it kind of inspired me, but not really. It was more like Madonna was such a strong word, and I don't know why. It was it might have been a dream again. Actually, this Madonna of the night. Sometimes I wake up, and I wake up with these images and these words, and at one of these like half asleep kind of moments, I heard just the sentence "Madonna of the night" we call, and that was so inspiring. Like the dance floor and this coming together of people was some kind of celebration, church like, like everyone united in the same spirit, praying to this God, goddess, whatever, which unites them, this feeling of love and togetherness. It's not a Christian song or it's not a cult or whatever. I'm not trying to make fun of something here. It's more like this kind of togetherness feeling in the eyes of the Madonna of the night, whatever that might be. I'm not really sure. I just love the picture. It was a wonderful image.
The album is going to be coming out on multiple formats, digital, of course, CDs, vinyl, cassette. You got some box sets. Most of these formats already sold out. Albums still weeks away. Already sold out. This had to have been a surprise to your label for kind of the anticipation that people really had for this.
Yeah, we were all surprised because, first, I think this is the only ever record on Napalm Records without any guitars because it's not rock, it's not metal, it's synth pop, it's wave, Euro wave kind of, I don't know how you call it. Let's say it's synth pop music. But they felt like it's going to be a cool thing since it's a side project of one of their big bands, Lord of Lost. And for me, it was great to work with them. So if I would have done it with a different label, there would have been like a natural competition between my solo career and the Lord of Lost career. And I don't want to be in competition with myself. Working together with the same team and also like in the studio, it's all Lord of Lost guys. Even some guys of the band helped me create the record. So it's more like this electronic 80s side of me, like at some kind of side wagon to Lord of Lost, But it was surprising because you cannot take Lord of Lost numbers and say like, hey, Chris is going to do a solo record. It's going to be the same numbers. So we kind of said like, okay, let's try 25% of that or 20% and calculate like that. But then was like sold out like that, everything within 20 hours. So we were like, okay, we have to come up with some more boxes and special editions. So we had to invent something. So we now we have this lunchbox set, which was actually a great way. It's a box set, but it's a lunchbox. You can actually use it for something. Everybody should do that. And yeah, that was amazing. But even that now I think I have 20 left or something. So they might be sold out tomorrow. I'm very happy because I did that to bring back a little bit of hobby feeling to my job. And suddenly it's people seem to like it and they want to have it. And I couldn't be more humbled and thankful. I'm very happy.
Have you had discussions about repressing more vinyl since there's none available?
Yeah, I will do that, but I will do that after the release because vinyl repressing takes quite a long time, especially since COVID and the Ukraine war and stuff. Because the shellac, it's not shellac, the PVC, the vinyl stuff, it takes longer. There's material problems still, so you can't just do that within 3 weeks. If you're not like if you're like Metallica, they want a vinyl, they might have 1,000 tomorrow. but they have a different relevance. So I will do that, but after the release. So I have some more vinyls on the long run. Yeah.
Metallica also has their own vinyl pressing plant.
Of course they have. I would have. I mean, if I'd be on that level, why wouldn't I have a vinyl pressing plant in my basement? Those things are amazing. I love the technology. I'm serious. If I'd be James Hetfield, like in terms of relevance and all it, like being a big star like he is, I'd so have my vinyl pressing plant in my basement. I tell you.
It's kind of weird of this vinyl resurgence. It's not particularly to a certain demographic. You would think it would appeal more to a demographic like you and I, who are older, versus the younger generation. But the younger generation are collecting them as well. I'm not so much sure they're listening to them, but they're collecting them.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have this Telegram channel and WhatsApp channel where like you can put something in it, but people cannot comment on it or whatever. They just see it. So it's more like for the hardcore fans, but you can make polls in there. And we made this poll where we asked people like, who of you guys who ever bought a Lord of Lost vinyl, who actually has a vinyl player? And it was 5%. But I get the thing, because some people, they like to collect, they stream it, but they have this big piece of record with the big pictures and stuff, like a CD, even a CD booklet. It's like that. It's like for us in the metric system, it's 12 by 12 centimeters. It's really not a lot. And you have this vinyl, and maybe it's colored or liquid vinyl or whatever. You look at it, it's kind of magical. You can put it on the wall. You have it in your. You own it with more pride than saying, "Hey, do you want to see something? I have Lord of Lost on Spotify. Look, there it is." That's not sexy. So I get why people love to collect it. I totally get it.
Are you going to be able to put together any solo live performances here and there?
I will do one this year at the Maraluna Festival, and that might be the last show, the first and last, because I don't really have live plans for that. Me, as being a family father, I'm not too much in love with traveling unless it's for holiday. I'm on tour already, like double the time than I actually want to. So, whenever I go on tour, I will always give Lord of Lost priority. So there might be a Chris Harms solo show here and there, and this might change. When my son, he's 13 now. When in 3 years he's going to be 16. That's an age where most kids like it when parents are not at home. So when I tell him like, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks," and he might say like, "Yeah, cool, let's party," and I get that. But right now, no.
You do have a busy tour schedule coming up with Lord of the Lost through 2025.
Yeah, we have everything planned out until the middle of 2026, and there's like so many countries, so many shows, so we're good.
Do you think you might make it to the US at some point with Lord of the Lost?
Yeah, but not this year. But we are planning to go back in 2026. Actually, tonight I'm going to have a call with my German booking agent and our American booking agency, because they work on that together. And actually tonight we're going to plan out when to go back first, because we have to go through the whole visa thing again. And this takes 6 to 12 months. So we're not going to be back before in 1 year, but it might be that in February 2026 we're going to be there.
Okay. Lord of the Lost had a tremendous opportunity opening up for Iron Maiden in 2022 and 2023.
20 countries. 20 countries.
From what I understand, one of the members actually picked you guys personally. What was the experience like for you?
Yes, that was Steve Harris. It was crazy. My booker, he called me in the end of 2019. I was in the studio and said, like, "Are you sitting down?" I was like, "No, should I?" He said, "Yeah, you want to sit down." He said, like, "Yeah, Iron Maiden, their agent just contacted me, and Iron Maiden wants you on tour with them." And I thought they're like hidden cameras or something, and someone was making fun of me. But then we got booked for the tour in 2020. Then was COVID. Then was rescheduled to 2021. Then rescheduled to 2022, and this went on. So, but then we did it in 2022 and 2023. I think 20 countries, and it was amazing. Was successful. I mean, they asked us a second time, and that was even more crazy. The first time was crazy, but when they ask you a second time, that means it wasn't that bad. And that was actually like that was the ultimate, okay, they want us again. And yeah, Steve picked us, and he found us on YouTube, and he liked us.
You mentioned that you were working on the next Lord of the Lost album while making your solo album. When can we expect the new Lord of the Lost album?
This summer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are all the questions I have for you today, Chris. Your new solo album, 1980, comes out on February 7th through Napalm Records. Fantastic album. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. I know yesterday was your birthday, so happy birthday on top of that. And I wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you. See you. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Once again, I want to thank Chris Harms for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out his latest album, 1980, out on February 7th through Napalm Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming platform. Take a listen to what's available. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artist. For all things Chris Harms and Lord of the Lost, head over to their official website, lordofthelost.de. I also want to thank Jordan Adranger and Napalm Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.